Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel, Guided Way, and I am your guide. And for those of you who chose the rigid card, this is what that spread will be about. And let me just set this over here off to the side. Here's my little buddy Oracle when I need him, right here. Okay, the rigid card can mean any number of things. It could be expectations that we have of ourselves, expectations that we have of others, expectations that others may have of us, and these may become things that, you become just, kind of like empirical evidence of just based on when you get up in the morning and you eat the same breakfast, or you take the same route to work, or you do the same exact thing, time and time again. And so you may feel like you're not very flexible, or maybe that's just how your routine is set up. But one thing that I like to kind of emphasize on is that the only permanence that we know of in this universe is impermanence. Nothing is permanent. And I think that that's why this next spread that I'll be doing for you, the Tower spread, is a very good spread, because it's about building up based on past experiences, and based on building yourself up. And so essentially you're building your tower. You gotta have your foundation, you got your structure you're building up, but then when you get closer to the terrace, it's going to start tearing down. And it could be any number of reasons. Either something has happened to cause the terrace to kind of tumble and fall, but it could also be that maybe you like what you've done thus far, but you want to go in a different direction, or maybe life intervened and maybe seeking in a different direction. So, without further ado, I'm going to finish ruffling these. And the deck that I'll be using for this spread and the other next three is the Vampire deck by Ian Daniels. And as you can see, I would like to say it's a very rich deck. It's a very decadent deck. But for the more squeamish, and if you're not really big on vampires, this might be the deck for you. So if you like the other cards from for what I'm doing the reads for, maybe you just don't like this deck either way, because you're just not really into vampires. But unfortunately, fortunate or unfortunate, I know a lot of people who really love vampires. So, yep, that is a popper, and that'll be for the foundation. The first three cards is the very base, the very foundation of where you're kind of coming from. And so these are just, how, where you got to where you're at now when we're building up from. And then we're going to start forming the structure. In other words, I got to move some of this stuff out of the way. And now as we go up the tower, I will show you where they're at in the spread, and I will explain, just positions of what the spreads mean in the positions. I'll just show you the spread, your foundation, and then you're building up your structure. And then these 3 cards would be your terrace, but something happened in here to where something has changed and the terrace is coming down. So that could be, either you're making changes, or maybe your life just is one of those things that just happens when you're busy making other plans. But we're going to go ahead and we're going to go start with the foundation. And at this point in time, the first card is wants and needs. What is changing? Why is it changing? Events, actions, and emotions. Feelings towards the situation. Lesson of what is being learned. Your challenge or obstacles. And then basically what you need to release, rethink, and rebuild. So with the first card over here, the 9 of Grails. And that normally is a sign of completion or a satisfaction or joy and happiness. But as you can see, this is one that's more of a, I would say it's more of a pleasure card, because 2 people, joining together and becoming one. And, so, at that point in time, maybe you feel like you've reached the height or the point of a relationship. But being comfortable and, having a lot of love and affection, and, and you have a desire of wanting this to share this with others. And so this is a good thing. But, this is a Tower spread, so things are going to be changing. Things are going to be moving. And so we're going to go on to the second card in the spread. And that is, what is changing for you at this point in time. And whether it's rigid or not so rigid. The 8 of Knives. And and of course it's reversed. So it's somewhere between what's changing is that you're feeling trapped. So maybe you're in a relationship, or maybe you're at a job that, you're no longer feeling abundant and productive, and you're feeling trapped. And, and with it being reversed, it could be that, you've been in this situation for so long that maybe you convinced yourself that there is no way to get yourself out of that situation. And so now we're going to go on to the third card. Why is it changing? The 5 of Knives. And the 5 of Knives, that also represents kind of a stage or things changing for you. And you've worked hard, and maybe you've gotten, but it's also a point of victory. Maybe you've had to do some battle, maybe you struggled, and you were able to get yourself out of being trapped. And so that's always a good thing, but sometimes, we do things quickly and we don't necessarily think about the consequences or the actions that follow. So now we'll go on to the fourth card up in the Tower, and to the structure. And the feelings towards the events and actions or the emotions of what's going on in this situation. And that is the Queen of Scepters. And this is another card of abundance, but also a sign of achievement. You've had to work hard to get where you're at. And with it being a queen, I wouldn't necessarily know if I wanted to be royalty, let alone the president of any country. But sometimes when we work hard for something and we achieve a certain goal, maybe it's not necessarily what we had hoped or what we expected. Sometimes it's not necessarily entirely everything that we wanted, because sometimes we just build things up in our mind. And this could be coming to a point to where, you're coming into a new phase to where, you know, maybe you have a new project, or maybe you have a sense of newfound creativity about you, and your passion is starting to move you forward, but you're really excited about it, but you don't necessarily just want to just come right out and tell everybody about it. So, you're kind of keeping this to yourself because you want to see where this is taking you, and that's not a bad idea. The Seven of Skulls. And again, that's another card of changing. In which case, if you're not familiar with the tarot, the skulls represents the pentacles. And, this is reversed, so maybe, because this is, a situation where, you try to go ahead with your project, and maybe it was a good thing that you kind of kept it to yourself a little bit, because you didn't necessarily get the results that you was looking for, or maybe the productivity wasn't what you hoped it would be, and maybe there's mistakes have been made, and maybe those mistakes weren't necessarily picked up on, or it's because sometimes we'll get in a hurry, we make mistakes and we don't necessarily become aware of the mistakes until after the fact. And we'll go on up to the sixth card, and the lesson of what is being learned. The Six of Grails. And that's kind of, where you're looking back and maybe you're realizing that you've made mistakes, and maybe this is kind of like, this is where you take a moment and you look back to your past, to like childhood memories, and and maybe you're looking at some things that were positive, and you're kind of holding on to it, and maybe you're looking back to the past because things aren't necessarily going quite the way you want it. And so at that point in time, you're kind of maybe just finding yourself in a place where you're kind of thinking about it, and thinking of things when things were easier and more simpler, and maybe you have a sense of nostalgia. But thing is, when we do that, sometimes we kind of stay in that, and we don't necessarily want to move away from that because we've gotten comfortable with where we're at, and sometimes we get comfortable, we get complacent. So that's something to be thinking about. On to the seventh card, the Daughter of Knives. And it's upright. And at this point in time, that's a sign of, communication. That's a symbol of truth. And you're ready to move away from this nostalgia, because you're ready to take on a new challenge and accept new ideas and move away to where you've been at. So now we're going to go into what we need to release. And strength, but unfortunately strength is reversed. So thing is, it's one thing to be strong, but sometimes, we overreact and we overextend, our strength, because maybe we feel like we're being threatened. But sometimes, not every situation requires brute force, but sometimes we don't necessarily have to challenge everything in a very vocal or very physical way. And so maybe this is what you need to release, is that you maybe have some excess energy built up, and before you overreact to a situation, to let some of that energy go. The Sun. that is what you need to rethink. And the sun is that, you're coming into a better place. And it's, of course, with the sun card, you're coming into your lights, and you're coming into a place where you can see things better, and you can see things for what they are. And you'll be able to bring about some happiness and some joy. And you're getting, this is definitely what you want to rethink, because maybe you've been kind of stuck in the past for too long, and maybe overindulged for too long, and maybe kind of let yourself get trapped, and you were able to get your way out. But maybe now's the time to focus on the joy and the happiness and the things that you do have in your life. And so, of course, release, rethink, because this is the part where you need to rebuild, because this is your terrace is coming down. Okay, the Lord of Skulls. And when it comes to the court cards, you need to, but of course, with this being a pentacle, it's, kind of like a monetary card, where you're at financially, or financial gains, and so on and so forth. But, maybe, you've kind of gotten to a point to where you've gotten a little bit lazy. And of course, I'm talking about getting, complacent, and because, you get comfortable. And when you get comfortable, you get complacent. So, it's trying to be happy, and, and accept the joys of your life. But, we also have to be ready to put it in the work as well. And so this is the thing, don't get lazy, and don't get so to the point where you become so rigid that, you're all about, all these pleasures and senses, that, you stay in this position, and you're not getting the work done that you need to be focusing on. And that is all for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it was helpful. And thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe. Stay safe and be blessed.